reflections. What are some things that you're grateful for and that kind of stuff? So we'll get there when we get there, but please do be thinking about that and jump in if you're joining us live so that we can hear from you as well. Um, and so that's one whole category is like looking back and reflecting on that. And then, sort of as a culminating exercise with that, we love doing what our team just calls weekly wins. And sometimes this would happen on a Friday afternoon in particular, and we would do it with a beverage of choice at the end of the week, and circle up and actually celebrate together with what some of those wins are or were. And again, we sometimes just keep moving and don't pause to reflect and think about what things we could name with gratitude and maybe see that a little progress had been made on something we were working on. So, this weekly time together is for both of those purposes, to pause and reflect, take time to think, look back, notice where does even God draw our attention to that we want to go back and think about and maybe acknowledge, maybe write about in a journal, maybe whatever it is that is the next step for you. But then to celebrate, and in that celebration of your weekly wins, again, all of this, we would invite you, if you're joining us live, to go ahead and jump into the chat with a couple of your own comments. But I'll be able to share some of the wins that have been going on for me as you're catching me personally and Soul Care as an organization right in the sort of cusp of moving from sort of early experimentation into how can we give as much lift to this topic as we possibly can globally and help people wherever they're at, and getting some more traction. So it'd be kind of fun for you to track with us, I hope, and see some of the progress, some of the things that are happening over time, some of the mistakes that we're making, and the disappointments, or whatever comes to mind each week. I just look forward to having a place to share that with you as we're moving into this next season. So, again, my name is Mindy Caliguire. This is Soul Care, and we are all about like what is going on with Soul Care right now, and a weekly reflection for you in that. So, to get us ready for the reflections side, what I'd love for you to do, wherever you are, don't be closing your eyes if you're driving, but if you feel that that's available to you wherever you are, maybe to just sort of stop watching me necessarily, keep the audio on if you want, but to just close your eyes and think about this time yesterday. Think about this time maybe 2 or 3 days ago, maybe this time even a week ago. Sometimes I have to peek at my calendar even to remember what was going on over that, over this last number of days. And yeah, to just invite the spirit, to say, hey, God, welcome you to call to mind right now whatever things you'd like me to recall, things you'd like me to notice, things you want me to remember. And, so many times throughout the Bible, the way God challenges his people, and that would be us, is to remember, and how easily it is for us either to not notice a new thing that God is doing, or to not remember or not call it to mind the things that have happened. And so this is what you're doing right now, calling to mind what has this last week brought for you. Maybe there's some gratitude that you would notice, maybe a conversation that went better than you expected, maybe who knows what it is. So I would invite you, if you want to, maybe make a personal note of that. It's not so much a thing we bring into chat necessarily. Of course, you're always welcome to, but what is a thing that you recall, that you notice as you look back on your calendar of this last week? Yeah. So for me, one of the things that I recall as I'm looking back on the week is that I had created a video kind of like this and sent it off to an organization that had asked for some content for an upcoming, I think it's like a podcast kind of thing, or a video series. And And it's kind of a vulnerable thing when you just sort of ship it out and you're like, hope it helps, hope it meets what their expectations was. A week ago, I was in the place of having sent it, but not really knowing yet what they thought about it. And so there's this vulnerable place that we all enter, I think, where we do our very best work and we get involved in really important things that we care about, and it's a privilege. I think any work that we do has meaning and value when we create value for people, no matter what your work is. But we always want to do well. We want our service to serve. We want our help to help. We want our work to matter. And sometimes we get immediate feedback on it, which is great. But other times we just sort of have to ship it out there into the world and not know if it hit its target, if it actually served the purpose that we had in mind when we created it. And I was sharing this idea with another leader of an organization just last week as well, about how hard it is to release the outcomes of our work and kind of let go of it mentally, because you can just kind of stew about it. Did it work? Did it not? What did they think? What do I think? What will people think? All the kinds of things that we think after we finish something and don't necessarily have a sense or secure sense of what the outcome is. And Dallas Willard in Renovation of the Heart has written about this a lot in the chapter on the soul. And his writing, of course, is wonderful and very helpful on this. And then I have heard him teach and other people teach on this since his writing. And he compares our tendency to think about outcomes maybe more than is helpful to us, as similar to when you're bowling. Maybe if you know the sport of bowling, or you have the big heavy bowling ball and you throw it down the lane, I guess you call it, and try to hit the pins at the end. And it's a great sport. A lot of people play it. I'm pretty sure it's a global sport, but definitely here in the US. And it's almost inevitable. And nobody has to tell you to do this. It's like somehow wired into our bodies that when you let go of that heavy ball and send it down the lane, trying to knock down the white pins at the end, what do you do? What do people do after they release that ball? If you're like most people, maybe you've done this before, you start leaning like the direction you want it to go, or even hopping like on one foot. Like somehow anything you're doing once you release that ball is going to make a material difference in what direction it goes or where it lands. And of course, it's laughable because nothing that you do once you've let go of that ball is going to make any difference on where it goes or how hard it's pummeling toward the end, or what kind of spin is on it. None of that. It's all whatever you did is what you did, and it is gone and released, and the outcomes are going to be what they're going to be. And Dallas talks about how we kind of do that in life. And I felt it as I hit send on this video last week, that I was sending it out there, but all of a sudden having a lot of thoughts after the fact about, well, what is it? Did I do that right? Or did this happen right? Or did I really think about this the right way? And I can just mull it over, obsess even about it. Maybe you can relate. And it is a important spiritual practice to learn to release those outcomes. This does not mean we don't care about those outcomes. Of course we do. Nor does it mean we don't work hard towards those outcomes while there's still something we can do towards that. But once you've finished a task, once you've sent in a report, once you've finished a sales call, once you've written your paper, whatever it is, and you've let it go, it's human that you're going to keep thinking about it, and you're going to maybe think of something you wish you'd done differently, or you're really concerned because the outcome of that is going to deeply impact the outcome of 5 other things you really care about. That's just life. But learning to entrust ourselves to God in those moments, to just know that we are in his good care, that with a clear conscience we did what we could. Now, maybe we need to learn from mistakes, or it's not that feedback won't come and that we won't grow. We will. But just the spiritual practice of letting go, effectively standing there, letting the ball go where it's going to go, letting it have whatever impact it's going to have, and then moving on with peace. So that's one thing that I'm noticing as I'm pausing to reflect at the end of this week. There were several things that were had a nature of a deadline or something that had to be done or turned in, and letting go of outcomes is a pretty important practice for me, and I think for pretty much anybody that actually cares about the outcomes. So it's good that you care, and it's good to have a practice to help you let it go. Some people say that the best thing to do when you can't stop thinking about something is to actually start humming. Just start thinking about a song, it could be a worship song, anything that it sort of occupies a different place in your brain and enough of your attention to eliminate the worrisome thoughts that are more concerned about an outcome that you can't do anything about. So, anyway, that's one thing that's coming to my mind. And I wonder if anyone else has a thing that was a reflection from this past week. And I hope you'll find some benefit in pausing. I guess if you still have your eyes shut, you might want to open them. But whatever is available to you, glad to join you in a pause at the end of the week to say, what do I notice? What might be changing in me or around me that I want to pay attention to? And what happened that I can be learning from? So for me, that's one today. Now to turn to our idea of weekly wins and celebrating things. And this one, golly guys, if any of you are joining us, shoot some wins in the YouTube chat, and it'd be fun to hear from others of you as well. And I hope week over week this becomes just a chronicling of things to celebrate, ways that we can be grateful. I know when we were doing this on Instagram, we had people joining from like all different kinds of places, and people were celebrating wins like a reconciled relationship with a family member. People were celebrating things like a gift that had come from a friend, and just things like that. Could be a big thing, could be a little thing. It's just nice as a practice to elevate the things for which we're grateful and that we can celebrate as a win. And sometimes the win is when we find acceptance around a thing that was actually hard. So it's not that it has to be all like cheerful and, rainbows and butterflies. Nothing wrong with those. But sometimes the win is in acceptance or the ability to recognize grief when we need to go there. So anyway, whatever the wins are, I have a couple that I was going to share again as we're sort of chronicling and inviting you into the journey of where I and our team are going. So some wins for me over the past week or so. One is that this wasn't exactly within the calendar week, but the fruit of it is showing up this week, which is we had a time with some of our team members actually in person. We have a growing virtual team of, I don't know, close to 25 or 30 people across, I think, 6 time zones and 3 or 4 countries, three countries. It's just been pretty interesting to see the amazing talent that has come together around this topic of the care of the soul, and especially for leaders, and how can we resource and be creative and all that kind of stuff. Well, everybody's virtual, but we were able to pull a small portion of that group into into actually my house here in Colorado. And oh my goodness, besides just the fun factor, which we do all love getting time together, there were some conversations that needed to happen about our strategic focus, how to align possibly a pretty significant refresh on the website, like things like that, it's just really hard to do it in a completely asynchronous or virtual way, even if it's synchronous, but on Zoom and things. So that was a huge win because we're starting now to see the wheels of change flowing from the time that we spent together. So for me, that was one that was really big. Another that is a win, actually, that has been in the works planning, but starting today is here at this is Whisper Ranch. I'm at Whisper Ranch here in Boulder, Colorado right now, and we love welcoming guests. We had some people out here Wednesday night that are new to the area that have been involved with spiritual formation and ministry for many years. And it's just fun to meet new friends. And then just today we have some new guests that are coming in for sabbatical and some significant leadership loads that they both are carrying and to help create a space for them to enter into some intentionality and some of the fallow ground that accompanies a time of sabbatical. It's like the opposite of a traditional or typical form of productivity that we can sometimes idolize. But what does it mean to have intentional time for rest? And so to be partnering with them is it's really quite an honor. So that's a win. Very excited about that. Another fun win is that I am putting the final touches on our semi-silent retreat. We do these every month. They're totally free to anybody that wants to join. We do them on our Soul Care Collective, which is our online community, and I'm sure we can put a note in the somewhere below where you're watching this to so you can see it. But for the first Saturday of every month, we for the last several years, we do a 3 hour. We call it a semi-silent retreat because it begins at the beginning with some interaction and getting to know the people on the call, and then we have 2 hours of silence and solitude that has a guide that goes with it. And so you can use as much or a little of that, but just having the shared accountability of other people to do this time with has been a game changer for many of us. And I will say myself included. This whole thing started because I needed the accountability to build time, structured time for solitude, dedicated time for solitude into my calendar. Even as passionate about the care of the soul as I am, schedules being what they are, it was still hard to commit to that when it was just me and my own calendar. And you could just easily just, oh, I'll just move it. I'll just do it this time. And nope, now it's from 9 till noon Mountain Time, the first Saturday of every month. And that next one will be tomorrow. So I'm excited I love prayerfully just thinking and asking God, where do you want us to focus? What do you want us to dive into this month? What scripture would be significant for us to immerse ourselves in and even listen to you in? So it's a win for me that I'm almost done with that and excited to share it with the team and with the group tomorrow morning. So that'll be fun. That's a win for me. And one other fun little thing that was a win this week, a total surprise. And it's a bit of a thing telling of the times that we're living in. And so this is a fake book back here. This is actually a book that's coming out in September. This is I probably wasn't supposed to tell you this, but it's somebody else's book on the inside, but the publisher sent me this on the outside, and it's coming out again in September. And it's called Ignite Your Soul. Super excited about it. Yeah, but it's all about when exhaustion, isolation, and burnout actually lights a path to flourishing. So, how do the dark and heavy and isolating times that we have been in or may find ourselves in today help us actually not just avoid those things, not avoid them at all, but by how does entering into those things and receiving what they have to offer us actually light a path to a different direction? It introduces like 6 practices. Anyway, enough on that. But the reason I bring it up is there's a publisher's periodical, I think it's called Publishers Weekly, that sort of pays attention to the publishing industry. And the editor with Nav Press, who worked with me on it, called me this week to let me know that she had just been interviewed for an article that they were doing, which is interesting. They approached 3 different Christian publishing houses to say, hey, it looks to us like there's a lot of books coming out that are dealing with the level of burnout and fatigue and sort of mental health issues and things like that all of us are dealing with. Do you see a pattern? And so they interviewed, I think, one of the editors at Tyndale, one of the editors at Nav Press, and one of the editors at and I don't remember the third publishing house right now, but um, really cool to be included in that. And she was interviewed because of this book, um, and she said something interesting because I read her she's the one interviewed in it. She said that those topics have always been part of the portfolio of Christian publishing because so much of our life with God is understanding how we metabolize pain or all those kinds of things. But she did acknowledge that there does seem to be a surge right now of this as a vital and important topic. And so maybe that's you today. And I know one of the other books they featured was Chuck DeGroat's new book that's coming out, which is just awesome. He's phenomenal. So anyway, more that you'll hear probably over time as that's coming. But it was fun to feel that our message is part of a broader move that is representing what people are needing and what even the industry is recognizing is vital right now. So anyway, that was a win. And the last thing I want to do is share, and I don't think we're having any chat comments, so I just double checking there. But the last thing I want to do is share actually a quote from one of the members of our team, Lacey, who put this in our Slack channel. And this is like the second or third time to that I'm reading this to someone today, and now it's to someone's, all of y'all, because it's so beautiful. And again, it came from Lacey on our team. She's just a phenomenal leader. And so I'm going to read it to you. This has so much to do with everything that we care about with soul care, everything that you probably care about wherever you are in the world right now. But it had some things in it that I'd never heard anyone say before. So this is really cool. So it's from a book by John Philip Newell. And in the chapter being cited, he is focusing on a Celtic prophet from the 20th century, Scotland, who lived the way of compassion. His name is George MacLeod. So of MacLeod, Newell says the following. MacLeod taught the holiness of wholeness. Holiness, he said, is essentially about healthiness. It is about healthy relationship with the earth and one another as individuals, communities, and nations. The words holy and whole are derived from the same root, the Middle English word hail, which means health. The pursuit of holiness is the pursuit of healthiness in our lives and the world. It is not soul salvation, he would say, it is whole salvation. For we are not called to be escape artists. We are not called to seek liberation from the world, but a liberation of the world. The time of salvation is here and now, for healing must be here and now. Salve, you think of a salve that we would put on a wound. Salve means healing ointment. To be part of salvation is to be part of healing in the world, of bringing what is torn and infected among us back into health and relationship again. And that's from a book called Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul. Anyway, we loved, our whole team went nuts for that quote. We spend a lot of time thinking about what we call soul health. And it's very much a fabulous concept to think that healthiness is in fact the path to holiness. And sometimes we get those things really, really backward. We think, oh, if my behavior is a certain way, then that will indicate health or bring me to soul health. And in fact, it's quite the reverse. How do you help your soul become healthy? Which then quite naturally shifts how we show up, our attitudes, our beliefs, our practices, our behaviors. Things start to shift when the interior becomes healthy. So Anyway, that's the thought I just wanted to leave you all with. If there's any way we or our team can be helpful, go check us out at soulcare.com. But we're so glad you're here, and we'll be seeing you about a week from now. Take good care. Bye bye.